with a new member likely to join the Bloodline and more. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for May 13th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, AEW is in a spot of uncertainty, as now the GM of TNT, TBS, and True TV that brought wrestling back to those networks has been let go. The Wrestling Observer newsletter would report that a few more notes regarding AEW standing as of this week within the Warner Discovery empire. There has been plenty of promotion of AEW during both the NBA and NHL playoff games on both TNT and TBS. AEW is also expected to have a major push at the Warner Media upfronts that take place on May 18th, which would make it one of the key shows they are trying to sell to advertisers. On the flip side, the bloodletting at Discovery Warner continued with Brett Weitz, the general manager of TNT, TBS, and True TV, being ousted from his role after 14 years. Weitz was credited for launching Snowpiercer, Chad, AEW, Impractical Jokers, and the revival of Wipeout. With AEW hoping to renegotiate a new TV rights deal for 2024 soon, it remains to be seen how this affects the company. Given his experience commentating for mixed martial arts promotions, Jimmy Smith has made a great play-by-play commentator for Monday Night Raw. Talking about the choice to sign with WWE over the UFC if he was a fighter, Smith told Unlock in the Cage that WWE was the likely destination if you wanted to become a star. If Vince McMahon says, "We're going to make a star out of you, you will make more money and you will go further than you will anywhere else," Dana White can only say, "Here's your chance. If you get your ass kicked twice, all that goes away." If Vince McMahon says, "We think you can be a great character and we can do a lot with you," they're going to make sure their investment is protected. They're going to give you the right booking, the right opponents, and the right people to get you over. The UFC can only go, "Here's 3 fights. If you lose, that's all over." Once Vince says, "You're our guy, here you go," first of all, that first contract is going to be worth a lot more money than the UFC's contract. Number 2, Vince McMahon, because of his faith in you or whatever it is, can give you all the opportunity in the world to fulfill that destiny. Dana White and UFC, because of the nature of it not being predetermined, can't do that. I would sign with WWE. After defeating Charlotte Flair in an I Quit match at WrestleMania Backlash, Ronda Rousey is now the SmackDown Women's Champion. On his drive-thru podcast, Jim Cornette mentioned an issue surrounding Rousey as she lacks proper opponents. Well, that will be interesting because you generally have a problem now in that most people still know that Ronda is legitimate. So most of the girls on the roster, I mean, let's face it, you would think, okay, she should be able to take girl X or girl Y apart in 30 seconds. At the top, most of the really good female talent are maybe Ronda versus Becky because Becky is a great heel, but Bianca's a babyface. She wouldn't want to do that. I don't know any match you could build in the next 3 months with Ronda and anybody that would mean as much as some type of big score settler when Charlotte comes back for her broken arm. So she's got to stay babyface for so long. Maybe Ronda just doesn't want to wrestle a lot, and that probably wouldn't hurt things either. Speaking of her loss of the SmackDown Women's title, Charlotte Flair is said to be out of action with an injury. In reality, she's taking time off to get married, which could be keeping her out for a while, with the Wrestling Observer newsletter noting, in the Rousey-Flair match, Rousey made Flair submit to an armbar. In storyline, Flair suffered a broken radial bone, forearm fracture. This was to explain Flair being out of action due to getting ready for her wedding with Andrade of AEW over Memorial Weekend. She is scheduled to return over the summer, going for revenge. Sticking with potential returns, Big E is recovering following a botched suplex from Ridge Holland that left him with fractured vertebrae. The Observer reported that Big E released news that his C1 vertebrae is not healing as well as he hoped for. He will remain in a neck brace for the next 4 to 6 weeks with the hope things get better, and he can avoid neck fusion surgery. Depending on the type of surgery they would do, fusion surgery could mean anywhere from 6 to about 15 months on the shelf. It usually is more than a year. With AEW star MJF teasing a potential move to WWE when his contract expires, it had been previously reported that this caused tension with AEW president Tony Khan. Now Fightful has reported that we've not heard of any outward frustration since then from Tony Khan's side of things. Though the two talked out their issues in the following week, we're told that sentiment hasn't necessarily lasted with MJF. Fightful has heard that MJF's sentiment about possibly going to WWE when his contract is up are not in character, and it's a subject that he's already weighed. There has been at least some progress on his future in AEW, as we're told there have been open-ended mentions about him possibly gaining an extension. Staying on the topic of MJF, Andrew Zarian of the MatMen podcast gave an update regarding the contract frustrations with AEW. It's more about MJF trying to get the highest value from his new deal as possible. However, there is a lot of interest in him from WWE and the network partners. I don't know how much of a reality it is for him to leave AEW. In December, a network executive was sold on MJF when I reached out to WWE. They told me they would be interested once his deal is over. A lot of this comes down to if AEW can lock in a much better TV rights deal. $48 million versus $140 million is a big difference. The Observer Meltzer discussed the possibility of MJF making the move to WWE, saying this is one of those situations where a lot is dependent on whether AEW gets a big rights fee increase, which would also be for 2024, although they'll know their 2024 revenue by early to mid 2023, long before the MJF deal is up. Plus, who knows who will be hotter in 6 months, let alone in 2 years. Other than WWE will be enormously profitable and alive, and AEW will be alive and how profitable depends on a deal not yet made. MJF was likely always going to be the highest bidder, unless the bids were close to equal. WWE may see him as a savior superstar at the current star's age, and he'll still be entering his prime years, or there could be a height issue. As we noted, how WWE treats Cody Rhodes is probably a big deal, since the two of them are friends, and WWE has treated Rhodes well. Regarding Rhodes, it was a very interesting note by his brother Dustin, who said that Dusty Rhodes would be happy with Cody's choice because Dusty always told him to take the money. That would indicate at the end of the day, the WWE offer was more than the AEW offer. And while I'm sure there were a million other issues to consider, that probably explains the prime decision-making issue. As Rey Mysterio has been absent from WWE programming for nearly a month, this has Dave Meltzer thinking that WWE could be planning a split between Rey and Dominik once the Master of the 619 returns. Rey Mysterio has of late gotten more stem cell treatments for injuries. Dominik Mysterio hasn't been used with the idea he's injured from McMahon. There is at least talk of them not being put together going forward, although without the connection to Rey, there's really not much they can do with Dominik on the main roster. They had built to an angle sometime back where Rey basically told Dominik it's time for him to go on his own, and then it was probably forgotten. And they've done a number of angles building to a split that were then dropped. So it appears when it comes to them, ideas are started and dropped all the time. With it seeming like the winners of the Money in the Bank ladder matches will have to cash in their contracts for a world title match at WrestleMania, Dave Meltzer pointed out that plans for Mania 39 are set, but the briefcase winners are not set to be involved. It was an interesting note in the new ad for the July 2nd Money in the Bank show. Rhodes talked about how the winners of the Money in the Bank matches get a shot at the title at WrestleMania. He didn't say that you get to cash it in whenever you want. A lot of people quickly jumped to the conclusion that it was a mistake, including in the company where the belief was that this year's Money in the Bank stipulations would be the same for every other year. Some say they believed it was a mistake that wasn't caught, but then WWE played the same commercial the next day on Raw and the day after on NXT. On NXT, after the commercial when they pushed the show, they didn't acknowledge what the winners of the two matches get. The only direct company word regarding that question was there is nothing definitive either way. Another person said that Vince has plans already in place for the top matches at Mania, and the winners of the Money in the Bank and the title matches wouldn't be that, although that commercial aired 3 times without an edit. On After the Bell, members of the Bloodline, Jimmy and Jey Uso, spoke about the potential addition of Naomi to the group, with her husband Jimmy noting, "It's very, very likely, man. She talks about it a lot. She talks about, I got an idea, I can jump the gun, I'm ready to just snap. She can snap, man. She snapped on me plenty of times. She can bring that promo. She's so ready to try something new. She's always been adaptive. She gets it. Sometimes I forget she's been here 10 years too." During that interview, Jey was asked if the Usos plan on winning singles titles as well, to which he said, "We're trying to take it all, Us. Why can't we be the tag champs and me and bro go get that IC title or the US title. We'll take it all, Oos. Singles, doubles, triples, line them all up, Oos. You know what's next. Following a fatal 3-car accident that left a 75-year-old man dead, WWE Hall of Famer Sunny would be arrested after a toxicology report found her to be inebriated at the time of the wreck. While she was let out on bond, that has now been revoked by a judge, as she will be sent back to jail.
And her blood levels range everywhere between 0.28, 0.32, and higher. So even taking the lowest level of 0.28, she is more than 3 times beyond the legal limit of driving. Criminal history includes 3 prior DUIs, and I appreciate your comment, Mr. Delridge, that would not be a crime here, but the important thing is that was a crime in the state which she committed it, and one of the things I'm looking at is whether somebody is going to abide by or conditions, and that includes following the law. In addition to that, she's got a prior driving while license suspended, and apparently had no valid driver's license on the evening that this crash occurred. What's more significant to this court is that there's an arrest out of January, an arrest out of February related to alcohol. This happens in March. And then in May, there's a Marchman Act, which in the state of Florida is a commitment based on drug or alcohol abuse. I don't know what that noise is, please make sure you turn it off. All right, so the question to this court is, beyond the dangerous crime with substantial probability, whether she's a threat to the community, and whether there are any reasonable means to protect the community short of incarceration. Given the history, and unfortunately it seems like 2015 there's 3 in a row significant criminal activity related to alcohol abuse in 2015, and here we are again in 2022. We have seemingly one event after another related to alcohol abuse. The defendant is threat to the community, and I do not feel that a monitor would protect the community because it's too easy to evade the means of that. So I do find that the state has met the burden, and I am going to grant the state's motion, and we'll be taking you into custody today. Mr. Delroche, if you could hang on one moment.
Yes, sure.
State did file information. I don't think you filed a notice of hearing. Do you wish to address that today, or you want to address it in the future?
Your Honor, I'd like to keep the May 31st agreement closed just in case something can be worked out in this case.
All right, here.
So there were a couple of other things. The state did agree to release some of the property from her car. Would you like us to send you an order for that?
Do you have a stipulation?
We do not have a stipulation. We agreed to last night.
Okay.
I've spoken with Officer Taylor this morning. The specific items are an insurance card, a New Jersey driver's ID, and checkbook. Officer Taylor has said he will help facilitate that. He's not aware of a checkbook, but he'll certainly double check it. If there is one, we'll turn it over and make it available to you guys.
So we're not concerned about any evidentiary issues ultimately for a trial?
He's going to photograph it and return it.
All right, if you want to send me a written stipulation with the proposed order, that's fine with me if it's fine with the state.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right. Order to follow. Anything else to cover for today?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Mr. Delaware?
Nothing from the bench.
All right, thank you very much. Court is recessed.
And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.